Cassian gets put to work in prison. Dedra launches her investigation. Luthen visits Saw Gerrera and more as the Sky Guys are back to recap episode 8 of Andor.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Sky Guys. Episode number 8 of Andor is in the books. We went to a new planet. Here we have the episode is entitled Narkina 5. And once again, I'm your host, Mike Phillips. Joining me today, man who's voicing the narration every single week, Pete Consadori is here. Pete, how are you?
Doing well. It's kind of weird that live action Star Wars we're getting to episode 8. It's going along, but yeah, it's great to be here again as always, and happy to watch and talk Star Wars with you guys.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up because at this point, I mean, Obi-Wan was done, Boba Fett was done. This would be the finale of Mandalorian. Yet we still got a month of Andor after this.
We do. That's the weird part of it. This is probably the longest running. I mean, granted, Clone Wars and Rebels was a little longer, but we did it once a month. You know, we're doing a lot more episodes on one show. We're probably breaking records here, right, Mike?
Yeah, we definitely are breaking some records here. And also with us today, he is running his own rebel group of partisans here. Nick Fraietta is here. Nick, how are you?
Doing great. Ready to talk about this episode. It's not going to spoil, what I think about this one, but me and Mike spoke about this episode earlier a little bit this morning when we both watched, and my opinion is basically completely changed from when I spoke to him this morning, which is pretty interesting.
That is very interesting. I'm not going to spoil where you were this morning. We'll get to it later on, but this is a lot of fun here. And Pete, as always, we are going to talk about, how you can subscribe to the Sky Guys podcast. You can check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, all the usual suspects. Simply search for the Sky Guys in your favorite podcast feed to find them all there. If you're waiting for Just on the Suffering feed this week, might be a little later. I got an episode dropping in there on, on Thursday night to Friday. This one's not going to be until Sunday. So you want it on Thursday, they have to record. Get on that feed.
Get on that feed. It's super simple, free. So you might as well go and do it and get that extra the extra days of listening, right? I mean, you get it early.
Yeah, you can get it early, which is always a help here. And Nick, people want to follow us on the Instagram where they can see some of the new memes. How can they do that?
At Sky Guys Podcast on Instagram. We do also do like a lot of clips from the episodes here. If you can't listen to the full thing, you can do that.
Yeah, the clips that we throw up on Twitter usually promote the episode are also going to be on Instagram. So that's a good place to check it out. Usually Sundays.
Right.
Yeah. All right. You can also check out the YouTube page, Mike Phillips on YouTube. Video versus conversation is going to be up on the YouTube channel. All the graphics, all the fun stuff there. So I'll plug that out there. And Nick, we had no Star Wars this week. We got some big news this week.
We do. So I have 2 pieces of news for us this week. If I forget anything, let me know. But so there's apparently a secret Star Wars film by a David. Is it Lindelof? Is that right?
Damon Lindelof.
What did I say? David?
Yep.
Oh, Damon Lindelof here, and several sources close to the project say that not only is he developing the film, that the film's going to be directed by a Shireen Obad Chinoy. I can't tell you who that is, but she has won some awards, Academy Awards.
Yeah, she's also involved with Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She's done that.
Yeah, so that's the story. I mean, I'll say it right away. I don't believe this for a second. I don't believe any of this. I would be absolutely shocked if this ever comes up, not even if this comes out, if this ever comes up again.
Yeah, well, I think I buy this one. I feel like we heard the rumor before about the Lindelof Star Wars movie here, and he has great bona fides, Nick. I mean, he's one of the creators of Lost. He created Watchmen, the HBO series in 2019 that won a crap ton of awards, is really good. And Pete, I think the thing that encouraged me here is that, like, the article basically said, like, yes, and they thought, we want to, it's not like a direct sequel to Rise of Skywalker. We're going to bring in some of these characters in the sequel trilogy, but Dave Filoni was in the room apparently when they had these writers meetings. So it's at least encouraging that somebody who's well versed in the franchise is in there. Lindelof wanted to pick his brain. What's going on?
It's encouraging, but I'm more of the skeptic side where it's like I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, anyone can write an article about what's happening, and it could be just complete trash, could be bogus. So let's see. I'm not going to knock it, but I'm also not going to praise it yet.
My point is, I'm going to say this, Nick. Here is like, if this happens, it's good. This could be really good.
Could be. Yep. Absolutely.
All
so,
right.
My reasoning for why I don't believe it is my second piece of news, which is Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy is apparently told to keep quiet about future projects. This was posted yesterday. Apparently, how do you pronounce his last name? Bob Chapek or Chapek? How do you pronounce it?
Chapek, I think.
Chapek, CEO of Disney. Bob Chapek reportedly told Kathleen Kennedy, "Do not mention projects anymore until they are set in stone." Basically, they keep saying things are going to happen. Rian Johnson's trilogy, Taika's movie, this new movie now, and none of them are happening. Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron. Stop telling us stuff until it is confirmed, until you're filming. And I think that's where it came from, as he basically said, all right, another one with this lady? Stop.
Yeah, Pete, to be fair, this is not Marvel where they've constantly deliver on things. In the movies, they have been misfiring on these deliveries for about at least 6 years, 4 or 5 years now.
They've been missing the mark since the sequels and during the sequels. I mean, it's just this is typical rumor mill. Let's get the fans excited and give them a glimmer of hope, even though we don't think or don't know if it's actually going to happen. So, I mean, it makes sense that someone comes in, and Disney comes in and tells Lucas, "Hey, look, not Lucas himself, but LucasArts, so you got to stop. You have to stop because it's not only just messing with the fans, you're giving us a bad look." Because it looks poor on the reflects poorly, excuse me, on the company, because it's almost like they're not getting things done like they said they would. It's not really a great PR move, right? So it makes sense.
I mean, they're the firm that cried movie, and they haven't delivered a movie yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it's not a good look for them.
It's not a good look for them. Let's get to the episode here.
That's it for the news. That's it for the news. That's all I have. Unless, do you have anything that I forgot?
No, we just mentioned here, Tales of the Jedi came out today on date of recording here. We're going to cover that in the off season here because we want to give this the proper attention it deserves, because this is sort of a spiritual, spin off of Clone Wars. So I feel like we not be fair to it if we rushed into it in this podcast and give it its own separate space.
Have you guys just, real quick, have you watched any of it yet?
I have not gotten to it yet. I was a little busy today. I'm planning to get to it soon.
I watched the first 2. And I like it a lot.
Okay.
A lot.
That is good to know here. Let's get to the episode here at hand. Again, entitled okay, here, Narkina 5, based on the planet that Andor goes to for his prison sentence here, the 6-year sentence here. And let's start off here. Let's start off with the Cassian prison sentence here. And Pete, what did you think of getting to see the episode with Cassian in prison, seeing what the Empire does with its prisoners?
It's very interesting. I have to say I wasn't bored by the arc at all. I was kind of afraid that if we stayed in prison with Cassian, that it would just kind of be a snooze fest. Judging on how the pacing has been for these episodes, I feel like we had the first 3 episodes were really good. Then the next 3 were like, okay, I can see where you're going with, but it was a little slow. And now I feel like we're starting to get a lot more information that means something. And I think that this prison sentence and the way they're portraying it was actually enjoyable, and it looked cool. Like, it was, I mean, being in prison doesn't sound cool, but the way they did it made it very what's the word I'm looking for? On par for what we thought the Empire would probably be doing to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, and Nick, I mean, we see when he gets, they divide everybody up, they send them on their different ships, they bring him to this planet, Narkina 5, where Andor's supposed to work in a labor camp, and we find out that while they're on the transport, they make them take their shoes off. And I remember the first time I saw the guards walking down with the oversized rubber sneakers, I thought this looked ridiculous. And then I realized, once they shocked the floor to basically put the prisoners in line, they saying, "Oh, this makes more sense now." And this is pretty damn brutal.
Yes. It is, and this is actually my favorite part of the episode. This is something that we talked about this, Mike, and I think spoiler alert on what me and Mike talked about earlier. When I first watched this episode, I thought it was awful, and I thought about it more and more, and I actually like this episode a decent amount now. And it's because of this part, the Cassian in prison, because now I think I fully understand it. because I think that to me it was just like he's being forced to work on a team. He was just forced to work on a team. We're gonna do it again. That was my first initial thought. Now I'm realizing no, this is like a Squid Game situation here where the Empire's pinning these people against each other on purpose, because what is the only way that these people can escape, or the only way that the rebellion can take down the Empire? If they're unified. And if they're working against each other, they're going to start disliking each other and working against each other, not with each other, and they won't be able to escape. So it's actually genius what the Empire is doing, and you can just see the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the presence of fascism.
Yes.
That they're showing. And that's something that, like, it may not be so exciting, like even like Boba Fett riding a Rancor, Obi-Wan and Vader fighting, but it's good storytelling.
I mean, the thing that struck out to mind that, Nick, was like right away, like the scene where they're basically showering everybody in one room. That was immediately reminiscent of like them trying to add their spin on, like, okay, this is something that would happen in like the Holocaust camps. So in terms of like, this is the way they're saying like this is how the Empire treats us, and again comparing it to like Nazi Germany to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and P, I want to touch on the Squid Game aspect and Nick brought up here, because basically the way this facility is set up here is that everybody gets assigned to a floor, then they're in a floor, they're in a room. Their room, they're working on teams to try and complete projects. And basically the Empire structures that, okay, like if you do the best, your conditions are better than everybody else's because, you get the better food supply, you get some taste in the food. Worst case, like your food sucks and like your living situation gets very poor. I thought this was very, like Nick said, very Squid Game-esque, and right down to the point where like Cassian's team has the one old guy struggling to do his job. So I thought that was very interesting. And though I don't know if this old guy is the same as the old guy in Squid Game is.
Yeah, so being someone who's never watched Squid Game, I know. Sorry. Being someone who's never watched it, I found it interesting, and I still made the correlation because I knew what the theme was. And I don't know about that old guy. It seems like Cassian's team, and I'm not sure if this is well known or not, and this is just kind of like me saying, I think Cassian's team's the more we have to work together to make sure he succeeds, so we all succeed. And I feel like if that old guy was on a different team, it would be like, no, you're out of here. We're getting rid of you, so we don't suffer anymore. And to Nick's point, like it's genius what the Empire's doing. If you're too busy fighting amongst yourselves, there's no common goal to fight against the bigger bad guy. So yeah, no, absolutely, it worked. Definitely did.
Yeah, Nick, in terms of the Squid Game vibes here, I did like sort of feel like, like Cassian's team he's working with feels a lot like the main Squid Game team we were following.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. Pete was saying he didn't watch Squid Game. I watched one episode, so I don't really know what you're talking about with that stuff. But I did notice one fault in their plan. I guess it's not their fault, but you noticed Cassian has his teammate speaking sign language to another ship.
Yeah,
another section, another room. I think that it shows that although the Empire's plan is to keep these people against each other, it seems like there's some sort of unity within them where you see some sort of hope here with these people working together, and that could very likely be how they escape. Now, that character, that's the guy from Rogue One, right?
I think I'm not 100% sure.
So I know that there is a character from his name is Ruscott Melshi, right?
Yeah.
Is that not him? I
think he's showed up later in the episode, Ruscott Melshi.
So this is not him, the one talking sign language.
No, I think he's one of Saw's guys.
No, he was a prisoner.
No, I know one of Saw's guys was there, so maybe that's how
that's Two Tubes.
Yeah, Two Tubes is outside. I know Ruscott Melshi is there, so
where?
Like, I think he's in the prison. Not 100% sure.
Yeah. He's in the prison. I just don't know if he's the one speaking sign language or not. Yeah. He's definitely in the prison, though.
Yeah.
Well, if it is him, it's him. If it's not him, then it's somebody else. But for those who don't know, Ruscott Melshi was one of the guys who went with them to Scarif in Rogue One at the end when they recruited more people. He died in the battle, and it appears that he's in this prison with Cassian. I don't know if he's the one doing the sign language or not. It might be somebody else, but either way, he's there. Imagining he somehow helps Cassian get out, and that's why he trusts him and is with him in the battle of Scarif.
Yeah, and Pete, like one thing I just think about this stuff here also that we have like these floor supervisors basically like keeping track of everybody, and is he sort of like being the mini wardens on the floor, like running the competitions here. And this is our sort of our biggest actor cameo of the episode here. Like, it's weird for me. I see Andy Serkis basically in this role, and like knowing that he's in a million things. He also portrays Snoke in the sequel trilogy. So what do you think about getting Andy Serkis here?
I think he did well. I also think that the character is also a well thought out character on the part of the writers because they have skin in the game too. They want to make sure everything goes right on their floor so that when their sentence is up, they're free to go. Well, as far as they know, they're free to go. We don't know what the motivators are of the Empire yet at this point. We don't know if they're fair and balanced at this point or if not. But my gut tells me they're not, and something's going to happen where he's going to have to stay a lot longer, that floor manager. But the characters develop well. Just kind of like right out of the gate, don't mess up because it's my sentence on the line, and I'm going to make sure that you don't, make me look bad.
Yeah, Nick, he does mention he's like something like, "Oh, I have like 289 days left on my sentence, so I'm gonna finish it up here." And another prisoner mentioned the Cassian's like, after the Aldhani heist, everybody's sentences were doubled because they wanted to have more rebel activity going here. I feel like we're definitely gonna see that this guy, Andy Serkis' character, gets screwed here. He's gonna definitely have his sentence extended.
Yeah. So help me understand something here. He's a prisoner, but he's also in charge.
He's like basically in charge of his group of his floor guys. So like,
okay, so he's still a prisoner though.
Yeah, like he's like basically like instead of hiring a warden, saying,
yeah,
have you like keep an eye on all these people.
Okay, and does he not count as a live action cameo? Is that not? Are we not led to believe that's Snoke?
No,
it is Snoke, right?
Well, it's Andy Serkis playing a human.
Is that the first time we've seen in Star Wars an actor play more than one character?
I mean, we've done the voice actors a couple of times, cycle over, but
definitely, yeah. And I guess technically he is a voice actor. He does motion capture too for Snoke, but I guess he's technically the voice actor, not the physical actor. I guess there was none for Snoke, but we know this plan or this setup is going to backfire against the Empire because obviously Cassian is not in jail in the next 5 years. He's a member of the rebellion, and he's a captain of the rebellion, so it means he's probably been there a while. And he brings Ruskat with him. So you would imagine they get out of jail. So how is this not going to work? We know it's not going to work, but how?
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one to see here. And P also does think we got a time jump here where basically he says like they think we have like a point. I think they jump a month basically of his sentence here. We see at the point he's become a well member of his team, that they're working well to build whatever the Empire's on. There's like some kind of weaponry they're working on here, but like as you can see, he's sort of taking information in and like just observing his surroundings before we see that he's kind of getting the lay of the land. I don't know if he's actually has any plans to try and work an escape out yet.
Yeah, I'm super happy they actually did a time jump and they didn't just say the next day, okay, he's a master at doing this assembly line. I think it's fair. I don't really have much more to say other than like it was a good decision to do a time jump. It's not too far in the future where he lost so many days elsewhere in the world, or in the universe of Star Wars. But it's enough time to be like, okay, it makes sense that he knows what he's doing now, and he's kind of just like moving at a faster pace and part of a team and everything like that.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think we could leave the Cassian story on here, Nick. Unless there anything else you want to add?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I do have one more thing to say is that what the Empire's done, another thing that's brilliant that they've done to have the prisoners go against each other is they're not being extreme. Everyone knows about what happened on Aldhani.
Yep.
And because of what happened on Aldhani, what's the code word? Like RHDO or something?
I think so, yeah.
I could have got the acronym wrong, but it's essentially doubling everyone's sentence, right?
Yeah, they said it was Cassian that.
So the prisoners are under the impression that the rebels are the reason their extension is doubled, so they're not going to work for the rebels. They're going to hate the rebels. So another reason that they're pinning people against each other is another reason the Empire is pinning against people against each other to help them not team up and work together to take them down.
Yeah, it's a good call by the Empire there. Rare bit of competence from the Empire in this trilogy. Let's go to more competent empiring. Let's go to Dedra's investigation here, and we get another meeting here at the ISB with Yularen is back listening to the briefing here, and she basically lays out this plan here. And Nick, I think this did go pretty well for Dedra. Seems to have a good grasp of what's going on here.
So it did. Now I have to say this, and for the audience, I apologize because it's been about 6 weeks. Mike, I learned today that her name is Dedra.
Is Dedra.
Yep, I learned that today.
All right. Well, we'll call her Dedra.
So we'll call her Dedra from now on.
Same
But
here.
she
voiceover wrong.
Yep. So I learned that today, but she has been, I guess you could say, the most successful character in this show in terms of when we met her, where she was and where she is now. She has risen through the ranks of the Empire with her investigation and kind of shown everyone that she's right. She obviously put Blevin to shame, and she's getting somewhere. And I think that's interesting because no one knows where Cassian is right now. He's going under another fake name right now, so it's going to be really hard for her to find him. But they're going to meet face to face in the season. If they don't, that'd be really weird, right?
Yep.
So she's going to win this investigation. Well, not win it, but at least find him.
Yeah, or yes, I could see maybe the face to face is sort of the end of the season. I could see that being the like one of the last things we get is them meeting up.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, and Pete, to get for the longer investigation, we get to bring our boy Karn back into the mix here. And apparently we find out that while he's been supposedly keeping track of fuel lines at the Bureau of Standards, he's been running searches for Cassian Andor about 5 or 6 times without permission from the bosses. And then that gets Dedra's attention there. Dedra shows up and basically interrogates him to get what she wants here. How do you think this interaction played out here? Because I think Karn comes out looking like a complete idiot again.
I mean, it's expected. Karn, he's a hard character for me. I want him to kind of rally and come back and become that, that bad guy. But from the looks of it and how they really grown his character, it's almost like, oh, look how pathetic he is. Like, he won't give up. And it's just like no one cares. And even Dedra doesn't care. And it kind of almost makes me feel like this character is not going to have a comeback until season 2 if he's still around in season, to season 2. I feel like it's going to be one of those deals. I could be completely wrong. But it's funny when I first met Karn and in the episodes, and then we saw like the whole, mother interaction, you start to invest a little bit more in the character, go, okay, he's going to come back stronger. And it's just after this episode, I'm like, maybe he won't. And I really don't care.
Yeah, I think Nick, I feel like that Karn is destined to be Lucy. Like, I mean, Charlie Brown getting the football like picked up like under him by Lucy the entire season. Because I mean, he does help the investigation. He basically goes to report that Luthen basically made him sign without looking at it. He gives Dedra the information. He's like, thank you. Like you'll be praised by the Empire for your service. And he basically tries to take this and say, great, give me a job. I can help you. And she's like, don't push your luck, kid. Like, go back to checking out fuel lines. I thought again, like he just gets like owned every chance he gets.
I'm not with you. I think Karn's very strong in this episode, and I'm very excited about his future. I think he finally got what he wanted. He got recognition for the Empire. He's still not there yet where they're signing him on for the long-term contract, but I think he's getting his recognition and he's trending in the right direction now. And I think you can see him even smiling when she leaves the room because he's getting what he wants a little bit. I think he's on the way up, and I still don't know his direction. If he's going to join Dedra's investigation and be part of the team to take down Cassian, or if we're going to see a last second, you guys didn't hire me kind of thing and go against him and help Cassian get out of prison or whatever it may be. Maybe help him out after he's out of prison. I don't know yet. I can see that going either way, but I think a very strong showing for him, honestly. And you're right. He gets punked, but I think he's trending in the right direction.
My problem, Pete, here, I don't think he can ever leave well enough alone because like he does get the recognition there. He's like where Dedra says, okay, you were onto something, like you did a good job. Like he tries to overplay his hand and like he has no leverage to basically get Dedra to hire him because like what has he done? Like considering he still has this screw up on Ferrix on his record here. It's not like that gets completely wiped away.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of grasping for straws here. He's just trying to get anything to try to get back into where he was. I think that's what he identified. Like that was his identity. That was him, and it got stripped because he didn't go about it the way he was supposed to, and now he's in this mess, and he kind of has himself to blame for it. But I can understand. It's almost like he's like an empty shell. He's trying his hardest to get back to what he knows.
Yeah, he is. And we'll put a pin in the Dedra storyline because she sort of comes back in the mix when we get to back to Ferrix here. But let's go through Mon Mothma real quick here, Nick. We get another dinner party. So you got two for the price of one this year.
Yeah, the dinner parties are always exciting. I enjoy the political talk, so I enjoy these parties, and I'm always looking. It's always to not, it always to know. I don't know the word I'm looking for. It's to know happiness, but I'm always looking in the background, trying to find a character that I recognize and be like, "Oh my god, look! There's never anyone." But um, always exciting to hear the politics. She meets with her for what's the friend's name again?
Take Halma.
Yeah, so he's wearing. I saw this. That what he's wearing in this episode is the original concept for Obi-Wan Kenobi. They put it on him. It's pretty cool. But I enjoy the political talk, and I think based on what you hear with something we're going to talk about in a little bit, the Saw Gerrera stuff, I think it's time that Mon Mothma comes out of the shadows once she gets her funding, and I think she will. And I'm very excited to see that. I think we're going to start seeing an alliance form.
Yeah. And speaking of alliances, Pete, we do get like more references from her basically talking some of these other senators of how she's basically the head of the separatist wing, that she's working with a lot of the worlds used to be like in the separatist side in the Clone Wars before they basically got forced back into the Empire here. So I thought that was interesting that we got that clarification in terms of like even though like she comes from basically a rich world, that she's basically still like on track with supporting like the people who in the end the separatists sort of had the right idea that Palpatine had too much power.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it's very interesting. I also think it's very interesting that she is probably the first and only right now senator or someone in power in the Empire who's openly against the Emperor. I mean, she doesn't come out and blatantly say it, but I mean, there's a lot of talk about the things she's doing to say the Emperor's being egregious, the Emperor's overstepping, the Emperor's doing this. She's probably the only one, and that's probably why a lot of the people were like not mocking her, but a lot of people did. Empire was like, yeah, okay, and you're the one that doesn't like our Emperor, ha ha ha. It's like she's actually being serious, and she's probably trying to play it off as a joke so she doesn't get kind of like picked off here because she's the only one that's openly against the guy.
Yeah, Nick, we do get a lot of talk from these other senators, like, oh, like you're trying to like do this so and so bill, and they're like, it's like, oh, just another attempt to try and prevent imperial overreach. So, like, I think at this point, Pete's right. She's just sort of become like a running joke among her fellow senators. Like, she's trying to fight the empire through the wall, and she's never going to win.
Well, I got news for you. She is going to win.
Yeah,
because I know what happens.
Yeah,
but what I find really interesting is that as the show goes on and we learn more about Mon Mothma, we learn, as you mentioned, she comes from a rich planet, right?
Yep.
And a rich background, probably a rich family. And you can see she's losing touch with all that. Her and her husband are in a barely relationship. Her daughter and her are in a barely relationship. And even other things in her life you could see falling away from what she was used to when she was younger, like the drink they all have.
Yep.
They all put the worm in the drink, right? From her planet, and she doesn't even drink it anymore. She's losing touch with that side of herself and becoming more of a rebel.
Yeah, and P.O.'s love is interesting here that like she says also like I became a senator at 16 years old, and like she's fighting for all the noble causes. Like where there's a lot of parallels to Padme Amidala from the original from the prequel trilogy. So you basically sort of see like all the stuff that Padme was doing basically sort of transfers into Mon Mothma. That sort of keeps the flame going.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. It was definitely a correlation. I think it's a nice kind of callback, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely is here. And Nick, one thing I want to mention before we move on from the Mon Mothma storyline here, like, am I to believe that we cut to this party twice? Basically, we go once and then Taycom was there. Second time he's gone. Then Mon Mothma asks where he is, and basically gets like a very mysterious answer in terms of like where he is. Like, are he just ducked out of the party on his own? Did the Empire grab him? Like, what happened here with Tay?
I don't know. I don't think he's to be trusted, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I
don't think so. And oh man, I had something to say, but I don't think I would have been able to remember it. It's about I'll give me 10 seconds. If I don't remember, we'll move on. It's about the dinner party, Mon Mothma.
Let me go to Pete for a second while you think about it here. Because
all right, do that.
Pete, did you have any theory on what happened with Taycom? Like, did I miss something with that?
My theory is almost kind of like with Nick's. I think he's playing some sort of double agent. I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed, like, even the daughter is acting super weird.
Yeah.
Like, you notice that in the dinner party, like Mon
Almost
Mothma's
like it's almost like
like they're all planning against her or something
yeah.
like that. Like it's just always very not awkward. Usually the daughter's very like this like rebellious teen, like I want to go in my room. I want to go. Like this time, she's like very like, oh yeah, I met him. Yeah, we met. Okay, all right, bye. I need to go. I need to talk to my father. It's definitely hiding something. I don't know if he's involved, but that was something I picked up while he was on screen. That there's all these awkward moments of like we can't talk. I need to go. Like it's something's up with that character or how that character's involved with her family.
Yeah. And
I did remember the thing.
Yeah, and Nick, I also say too that like my mom is clearly spooked by this interaction at the end too. When she's like walking away from that conversation, you can see look on her face. She's like something is not right here. What I was told.
Yeah, I think it's possible that they kind of like ratted her out. Maybe and we're gonna see like some sort of discipline on her or something. But what I was gonna say, I remember, is that you had mentioned something about Padme Amidala, or should we say Padme Skywalker?
Yeah,
no one ever seems to call her. But
she couldn't.
I guess she kept. I guess she changed her. I guess she kept her name for work purposes. But the reason that you see them so similar, I think, makes sense because remember, deleted scenes in Star Wars are canon.
Yep.
And there is a deleted scene of them in Revenge of the Sith. I think it's right after the Empire is proclaimed by the Emperor, where they're kind of discussing and the early stages of a rebellion. So I think it makes sense because they clearly agreed on that front.
Yeah, it certainly does. Here, let's move on to another story here. Let's go back to Ferrix here. And Pete, we spent a lot of time on Ferrix. You haven't been there like significantly for a while.
Yeah. I mean, are you asking me, do we spend enough time or are you?
I say you're happy we spent some time there.
Happy. Yeah, I hear that part. I'm okay with it. I think it makes sense. I don't think it was like, oh wow, I haven't seen this play in a while. I'm glad they went back. It's like, okay, you have to show this part of it because now Dedra's involved, the mother's involved, Bix is involved, and we'll get to all that too. And I think it makes sense. I think it fits fine.
And Nick Brasso's back. We hadn't seen him since premiere.
That's right. This reminds me a lot of. So Pete, what are you up to in Game of Thrones?
I just finished season 6, so I got the 2 short seasons coming up, and I'm ready to get disappointed.
So yeah, that's pretty much when it starts. So you've seen what you've seen so far is, and this reminds me of this. We have all these storylines that are separate, and this is similar in the Game of Thrones seasons. And pretty much where you are now is when these characters start coming together. You see that in Game of Thrones with, I believe, what you're up to. You see Sansa and Jon Snow come together where you are now, and you start seeing that here too. Where like we're seeing Dedra and Bix in the same room. We're seeing the mother and Dedra and Bix are all on the same planet. Like we're starting to see these characters, and what's her name was there too. Vel and what's the other one's name? Cinta, Bell and Cinta there too. So you're seeing all these characters come together a little bit, and it kind of reminds me of that. And to be honest, this is my least favorite. Although that is really interesting, this is my least favorite part of the show right now. I don't really find it important. Maybe I'm missing something. Like, what is so important on what's happening on Ferrix right now if Cassian's not there?
I think this is more sort of like backstory, in my opinion. It's like sort of like these are all people are important to Cassian on this planet, and like sort of like connecting the pieces. Sort of like the way I look at it, sort of like this is the gathering on the Cloud City before Luke Skywalker shows up.
Okay, all right.
I feel like
I see. So you think he's gonna show up, and then Bix is gonna say it's a trap. He's gonna go anyway, and
something like that. So something yeah. Like you're down the line here, but. Touch on a couple of quick hit things here. And Pete, we find out that remember last week that Cassian's mother did not want to leave the planet, and basically find out from Bix and Brasso she's really sick right now, and like she is basically on death's door, and like we don't know how much longer she's gonna be with us.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was some sort of explanation, unless I missed it. It's just very out of the blue. Like, yes, it's been 30 days because he's in prison, or how many days after he left his home planet, right? I'd like to know why. Did something happen with the Empire, and that's why she fell, quote unquote? Got dizzy and fell. Like, it seems very vague right now. Maybe we'll get those answers. But I'm kind of on Nick's side with the whole story arc being kind of bleh for me. It's like we don't need to. I get you want to see what's going on with the mother and Bix and them, but like there's other ways you could do it. So as much as I took it as good information to have, I just felt like you didn't need it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's the mother's side here. And when you see Bix work with Brasso, like, and they're sort of trying to care for her, and then Bix just takes upon herself, Nick, to go try and contact Luthen and like get in touch with him and like basically gather some information on where Cassian is and figure out like his mom is sick, let's get him home. And doesn't here we see that she goes to her little radio tower trying to call, and it goes to Luthen's shop, and Clay is there, and it's like, we have to cut them off. They're too much of a mess here. It's too risky here. And Luthen admittedly wants to go talk to them, and he feels bad about how things end with Cassian. So, like, what do you think about this?
Interesting, because it can go a number of ways. Is Luthen really feel bad about the way it went with Cassian, or is he out to get him and find him? Does that mean Cassian's going to show up and then he's going to come face to face with Dedra? That seems like the most likely scenario. Or could something else out of the blue happen? It leaves a lot of open roads here. And my issue with this storyline is with his mother, because I don't want to see her now. I want to see her in the flashbacks and how she changed Cassian from the boy who I guess couldn't speak English when they got him, right?
Yep.
So what he is now, that's what I want to see. I never thought I'd say this after Boba Fett, but I want to see more flashbacks. And that's where I want to see the mother, is in those flashbacks with Clem, the father.
Yep.
I want to see them with Cassian, and I want to understand more about that flashback we got, because I still don't get it. We have the Confederacy logos on a Republic ship, and I still don't. I feel there's a lot more to be explored there. And if we're gonna use his mother in the storyline, I think that's the way to use her, not so much now.
Yeah, I think that's for sure here. And Pete, what do you think about the decision? Basically Claire putting her foot down, saying, Luthen, you have to cut them off. I feel it was interesting here. Like, she's sort of become like she's basically the enforcer and like the clear mind, because Luthen gets like emotional, because like most of the time he's pretty cutthroat, but he has like a blind spot with Cassian.
This to me was very, I don't want to say Roken-esque, but it was very flip-flop. I mean, literally last episode, we have Luthen telling Mon Mothma, hey, like, the intention is people are going to suffer. That means it's working. 2, letting his assistant tell him what to do. And I understand where she's coming from, but I also don't understand why the strong-willed people are going to suffer rebellion leader that Luthen is, or whatever he is going to let her be like, you need to cut off communications now. Like, this is, you're not thinking clearly. It's like, sorry, I'm Luthen. I thought his response would be like, I'm Luthen, you're not thinking clearly. I know what I'm doing. I've been leading this whole thing. So it was just kind of weird to see that flip-flop.
Nick, I just think Theora has thought of here with the whole Clea situation, because remember last week when Vel gets the marching orders to go eliminate Cassian, that Clea is the one who delivers them and says, Luthen told me to do this, and Luthen's exposed here. So he's possibly just acting on her own here and like making her own decision here, saying that Cassian's a problem and Luthen won't take care of it.
Yeah, we have a lot of things in the show that I find interesting like this, similar to Cyril Karn. I don't know which way it's going to go. Is he going to turn good? Is he going to go bad? So is it Luthen telling her to do that, or is she acting on her own? If right now, if you had to guess, you would say she's acting on her own?
I think based on this interaction this week, I feel like she's acting on her own.
But if it turned out to be Luthen was telling her this stuff, would you be shocked?
No.
Yeah, same. Like, I agree with you. I think it's probably her acting on her own, but I wouldn't be shocked if Luthen was telling her to do this stuff. So that's what I find really interesting is I don't like a show where I know what's going to happen in the last episode. Like, you watch the superhero show or whatever, like a superhero movie, and you're like, you know what's going to happen in the third act. You know they're going to beat the bad guy. That's it. So this is interesting because, I mean, we know Cassian is going to live and most likely end the season victorious in a way, but I don't know what's going to happen with Luthen. I don't know what's going to happen with his assistant. And you know what's interesting is a lot of times in prequels, this is considered a prequel to Rogue One, right?
Yep.
In prequels, you know who's alive and who's dead, and you're just like, I don't care what happens to them because I know they're not in the other movies, so like, I don't care. I'm actually interested in these characters now, and I think that speaks volumes to the development of them. I want to know what happens with Luthen. I want to know what happens with Mon Mothma's husband. Just because he's not in the shows or the movies doesn't mean he's dead. Doesn't mean they don't love each other, like each other. It doesn't mean anything. So it could go a number of ways, and I'm excited to see how it's going to all play out.
Yeah, P, I do think that Nick makes a good point here. I feel like that we got a lot of these like morally like, ambiguous characters. I think does make it much more interesting where it's like you get when you watch, like, for example, look at Boba Fett, like, oh, like the twins are bad. Like Fennec is good now. Like we don't really like there's no really shades of gray character on some of these other shows that we have here.
Yeah, I mean, the more and more we talk about it, and the more and more we see actors from Game of Thrones. I feel like this is Game of Thrones Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Nick, but there's a lot of times when I'm watching Game of Thrones where I'm like, I don't know if I trust this person or not, or I don't know what side, even though it's clear as day what side he's fighting for.
Every single person in that show.
It's like I don't. It's almost like they've taken a book out of the Game of Thrones page, and there's, like I said, a couple of actors and actresses that actually play parts in Game of Thrones in the show, and they've made it Star Wars, and it's making it very intriguing. Now, that probably sounds hypocritical of me because I said the last 3 or 4 episodes were kind of on the slow side, but as a whole, looking at it in a bigger picture, 8 episodes, if you watch them all 8, it would make it a lot better than if I'm waiting week to week, right? We'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. But yeah.
Yeah, the way I pitched it to our friend John Stanko, Pete, was like I talked to him recently for the Halloween pop culture party and Just Suffering podcast. He's watched this point. He finished Rings of Power. He's working through House of Dragons. He's got 1 episode left of. He is getting to get to Andor after this. The way I pitched it today is I said, this is prestige TV for Star Wars, is the way I put it, which basically fits in exactly what you were saying.
I agree. I completely agree. And Pete, when you're done with Game of Thrones, watch House of the Dragon. It just finished, and it was awesome. I mean, the first season just finished. There'll be a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last thing here with we couple more points on get to on Ferrix. Number 1, we see Vel and Cinta are there. They figured out that's where Cassian comes from, and they're sort of staking the area out in case he shows back up here. I did think it was interesting, Nick, that of the group, like we know that Vel and Cinta are in a romantic relationship, and Vel seems to be more like, I want to stay with you, and Cinta is the one who's like, mission. We put the mission first. I thought that was interesting to actually play out.
Yeah, one way, one the other way. It's interesting. Like I said, like you just said earlier, these characters are not. They're not cookie cutter characters. They're not just like you paste them, copy and paste. They're all unique in their own way, and I think that speaks volumes to the show. The more we talk about it, the more you think about how this show is really like prestige Star Wars TV, right?
Yep.
I don't disagree with you at all. I completely agree with you. But the more I watch it, the more I say Boba Fett was a steaming pile of shit. That's really how I feel about this. Because the more I watch it, I'm like, oh my God, Boba Fett was bad.
Yeah. Boba Fett's not even the same. Like, it's not the turd on the shoe of this show.
Yeah, Boba Fett. I'll listen. I'll tell you this, and I'll be honest. I think Boba Fett was more exciting.
Yeah,
I was on the edge of my seat more on the Boba Fett episode, seeing like what's going to happen next. Oh my god! It's Mando. It's Luke Skywalker. It's Grogu. It's who's this guy? It looks like Chewie. There's Hutts. It was more exciting, but it was obviously nowhere near as good.
Yeah, it's basically like the way I'll say it. P's like Book of Boba Fett is like you're going to like McDonald's, like where like it's good, like you have it in the moment. You're like 20 years later, like, why'd I do that? Whereas this one, it's like you're going to the steakhouse, you're getting the prime cut.
Look, the Book of Boba Fett is hot garbage. Only watch it unless you want to know what's going on in Mandalorian season 3 and how they connect season 2 to season 3. You know my opinion on Book of Boba Fett, which has been contested on this podcast and also by the audience. However, Nick's right. It's like you start comparing. I mean, even comparing this to like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show or Mandalorian. This is, in my opinion, so much more intellectually stimulating and more like story building than I would say Mandalorian or Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan, the story was built and you got 6 episodes and it was cool, right? It was a really cool show, really good, really cool show. But like, this is building a rebellion from the ground up and showing how that starts. And it's just, like I said, I was down on the show a little bit the past 4 episodes. The 4th one we talked about, I was a little more up, and now it's starting to climb up a little bit again for me.
Yep, here. And the last thing I think about Ferrix, Nick, is we see at this point that Dedra has investigation 7 running here, and we see that they're going ahead and basically trying to put the squeeze on anyone who's tight to Cassian. They see that the stormtroopers raid Bix's shop, grab the coworker she has, and Bix herself gets arrested, and then she basically puts a show on and says, like, look what I did to this guy. You need to cooperate or else, basically. So I thought it was interesting that she's pulling the intimidation tactic out on Bix because she figured out that she's the key to getting a hold of Cassian.
Yeah, of anyone there, I guess his mother too, but like those two people, and maybe even his friend, but more so them two. That's the key to get Cassian there. But they don't realize is Cassian's not there because he doesn't want to be. He's in jail, and they don't know that, which is kind of funny. They make it seem like, oh, we'll get him here, and then they're going to find out, oh, you actually have him already. You actually hold him as a prisoner right now, but they don't know that.
Yeah, he's building weapons for you. You don't even know it yet.
Yeah.
Yep, that's for sure. And we're also going to get here. I think let's put a wrap on that storyline. The last one I want to get to here is Luthen's meeting with Saw Gerrera. I think was one of the highlights of the episode for me, Pete, because we see Saw get there. We see that he has his old buddy Tutu's there. We've seen Rogue One. He's keeping guard on this place on the planet. To look up here the name of the planet. It's on my other track here. It's on Segra Milo. And we find out that he's hiding out here. They're trying to barter for parts. And there's this thing here that like they have a discussion about like who should work with who. And there's this thing that Saw basically calls out Luthen for having all the humans in his cell, where he's like, I have like a wider coalition of people working with me.
So how long was this scene? 4 minutes?
Roughly.
Okay. Best part of the whole episode. By far, hands down for me, the best part of the whole episode. This is the Saw Gerrera in live action that I've been looking for in that character. Rogue One, you see Saw Gerrera, who's been so over the edge and so messed up physically, mentally. He still has that radical characterization, and I understand that, and he's still cool in Rogue One. But this is the Saw Gerrera that I've been kind of looking for since we saw him in the animated series. The conversation he has with Luthen, and the question he asks him, like, "What are you? Are you political? Are you this driven? Are you that driven?" Just blew my mind how smart and how controlled he was to say, look, you can fight the rebellion the way you want to, but my way is right. My way is safer. And I don't trust you, even though you're part of the rebellion. And it was really good. I have to say that actor's Forrest Whitaker, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Phenomenal job in this scene. And I hope we see more of him in the show.
And Nick, people are fascinating dynamic too, because every scene we've seen Luthen at this point, he's basically been the one in control of the room, whether it's a Cassian, whether it's Mon Mothma, whether it's Bell. Here, Saw Gerrera basically puts him in his place, says, like, you don't get to tell me what to do. I know my way works. I don't trust your way. I don't trust you. So, like, you want my help, it's going to be my way. So I thought that was a very easy play out.
Definitely agreed. And this scene reminds the audience. Well, it reminds us because we've seen it, but the people who haven't seen it, it kind of tells them you have to. It shows us the importance of the Rebels TV show.
Yes.
Because we have all these rebels, and you can call them rebels, but their Alliance to Restore the Republic is the real name, and that doesn't exist. And you can see why it doesn't exist when you see conversations like this. When you have Saw saying that he named off a bunch of different rebel cells, including himself, and said, my way is the best, and that's not going to work. Because we talked about it countless times already in this episode. It needs to be a unified effort, or they're not going to have a chance against the Empire. And to my understanding, but from what we've seen in Rebels, that won't be shown in this show. That'll be what you see in Rebels, is them coming together. Another thing I noticed is, did you know this is Benthic is his name? Two Tubes, his real name is Benthic, but they call him Two Tubes. This is his third live action appearance in Star Wars already.
Where's the third one?
He's in Solo.
Oh, damn.
He's part of the Enfys Nest.
Yeah. So he's been just bouncing around Rebel cells for years.
And Enfys Nest was like the real first thing of the Rebels we ever saw. I guess the real first thing would be Mon Mothma and Padme's meeting in Revenge of the Sith, but that was real early, and that's something I really wish they would do more with. I know we all talked about this countless times. Solo, how they blame it. We all know, we know this whole story, but what that character, Enfys Nest, and her group was really interesting character, and I thought they would show it more, and they really abandoned it completely.
They did.
I'm sad about that.
They did. I also want to give shout because Saw Gerrera was really voicing your complaints about this whole show. It's like, hey, where are the aliens? We only see humans on this show, and he does point out, it's like, there are cells that literally are just like relying on humans to do.
I was upset that the prison had zero alien prisoners.
Yeah,
I was upset about that. I was, and the I think Mon Mothma party had some aliens. I think.
Yeah, I think yes. Yeah, Saw's. Yeah, Saw's. Sorry, Pete.
And Saw people did, of course. Yeah. Pete, you were saying?
No, I'm saying at the dinner party, I think it was like a total of 2 aliens. It wasn't a lot, and I
Yeah.
think it's budgetary. I really think it's all budgetary, and they just trying to keep the cost down for the cinematography and everything going on in the show.
Yeah, Saw. I found the term. Saw calls out human cultists as one group here, so I think that's interesting. Like it's something I think they're aware of when they're making the show. They've had Saw like put a line to it, so there's people like Nick say, "Oh, like it's not the only show is aware of. It's not something that they're just completely ignoring."
Yeah, right. I mean, we'll get more aliens in Star Wars. We know that. We got maybe an Amber Akbar appearance in the show.
You never know. Good.
I feel like I'd rather have him on my team than anyone else I drafted.
That's for sure. But I think it's a good place to leave the episode because it's sort of a teaser here. Well, they were getting more of Saw in the coming weeks, but let's go now to some of the trackers we do every week at the end of the podcast here. I'm going to start us out here with our character draft, which we are 2/3 of the way through the season here. And as of right now, there is no update. We still have zeros across the board. Although Pete, I did say like the one ISB agent who was working with Dedra on Ferrix reminded me so much of Cal. It's not for a second they're going to say, "Oh, Agent Cal," so you're going to point here.
It's never going to happen. I'm never going to win one of these. It's fine though. I understand.
I think the final score is either 1-0 or zeros across the board.
Yeah, Nick, did that guy that Dedra's working give you Callus vibes?
Yeah, I think we each have one person who is still potential here. Mike, you might have 2, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think I'm getting 3 people. I think it's Bale or Krennic on my team.
Yeah, maybe, but I think Palpatine's a possibility. I think Callus is a possibility, but everybody else not looking good.
I think the ship sailed now on Jin because we saw we did not see Jin. So
I didn't even. Were you thinking that, Pete, when you were watching? Like, is Jin gonna show? I wasn't thinking that. I forgot about that.
I was. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, okay, they're hiding out. This is probably around the time that Jin is left with Saw Gerrera, or Saw Gerrera finds her. So like maybe it's like a really quick thing. She's on screen for 10 seconds, like, oh, this is Jin. Go play or something. And I would have
now that I think about it, based on the timeline, it's right around that time
she gets abandoned.
Where she gets abandoned. She probably just left.
They probably left on the last planet when they paid to this one.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the character draft board here, but we'll leave that here. Maybe one of these 4 last weeks will get somebody on the board, but we're getting some of the other trackers action here. Nick, still no Hondo, though. He is stuck at 18.
No Hondo yet, but we know that number will not be 18 forever.
Absolutely here. Animated cameos, Pete, we're on the board because Saw Gerrera showed up to activate it.
Yeah, I mean, we're counting, even though we knew he was going to be in the show, we're still counting it because we want to see how many episodes they actually get the cameo, right?
Yep. We'll count him. So,
okay.
Otherwise, that thing would stay at 0. I feel like.
Yeah.
All right. Live action had a big week this week. We got up to 4 live cameos because we had your Lauren show up again at the ISB meeting. So he's up to 2 now. We had 2 tubes hanging out outside Saw's place. So we had Nick's guy in the prison there. So we have 4 live action cameos now after we had 0 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Ruscott.
Yeah, Ruscott's there. He's there. Planets, we also got a bump up to 9 now. We add Narkina 5 and Segra Milo to the board here. So we are still having more planets and episodes, Pete.
I mean, that's great. That's on brand for Star Wars. I think it's fantastic.
So are you led to believe, both of you, that the more planets we see, the less aliens we see? Because of budgetary reasons?
The mud's got to go somewhere.
Not to say that Mandalorian or the other shows that have come out and are not shot well, but this show, for me, has the best cinematography out of all the live action shows.
Definitely.
And I see that they use a lot of location based cinematography and they're not CGIing a lot of it. I'm sure the prison and everything is there. They're on set. I mean, I feel like with Mandalorian, there was some CGI stuff for like the landscape, and I think they probably use their budgetary resources on traveling and getting to these specific places to make it look as real as possible, than saying, well, we need to CGI a bunch of really cool things into it. And I actually think because this is a show of more the common person of Star Wars, it makes sense that there's not a ton of CGI or a ton of special effects.
Yeah,
and granted, a ton of special effects because of the heist that they pulled and being in space and the flying vehicles and everything like that. So there's still stuff, but it's not overdone like you would normally see.
Also, I mean, we talked about this preseason with they weren't shooting the volume. That was also, I think, a good call. And this really has helped this show here. I mean, Pete, let's be honest. Like, if we had this scene on Ferrix and we have all these people running around, all of a sudden you see a frog lady, would that just feel throw the whole thing like out of like vibe here?
I don't know if it would throw the vibe off or throw me off at all. I would probably just go like, really? Because it's Star Wars, right? There's different species in Star Wars commingled all over the place, right? I mean, it's a melting pot of species, and I think that's what makes Star Wars cool. Well, one of the reasons I think makes Star Wars cool and interesting. The frog lady is just I think is a poor choice of character to throw at me, Mike, because I had my gripe with her, and it's just like, okay, whatever. But I mean, I wouldn't be upset if there was a couple of aliens on Ferrix that like lived amongst them, because that's how Star Wars is. I feel like that's authentic Star Wars. I just don't think they could budget it, because look, when they got this greenlit, they probably the producers or Disney was like, well, okay, who's Cassian Andor? Why are you making a show about it? Like, this was probably this. I don't know if you can get the numbers. I'm curious to see what the budget was for this show compared to other shows like Mandalorian season 2 or Book of Boba Fett. I bet you that this is on the low end of how much budget money that they got compared to the other shows.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that for sure in a minute here. But we'll also mention here, Nick, no classic lines again. I feel like this one may end up staying at 0.
Just a scream. I'm telling you, we're gonna get a scream.
Yeah, so that's the scream right there. Maybe you'll see that one. And last but not least here, we have our Andor kill count still at 4. I feel like once we break out of prison, I feel like we're going to have this count edge a little bit.
Honestly, I don't know. I feel like this Andor has been the sneakily get away kind of guy, not the run and gun kind of guy. I don't think he's going to pull a chopper kill count anytime soon either. I'm I don't want to say concerned, but I actually kind of don't think he's going to have a high kill count. I think he only winds up with maybe 15 at most.
Yeah, well,
I would agree. I would think even less. I'd be shocked if he got double digits.
Yeah, well, this season maybe not. I feel like next season might see him be more of a gunslinger.
Can we carry this tracker over into the next season?
Yes, we can.
With the number remaining.
Yes, like we can carry all these over if we want.
Okay.
Maybe we'll drop classic lines and we don't get the scream.
Yeah.
All right. Next up here, we'll do our MVPs and LVP section. Every week, the three of us, and we have a guest too, we'll put in a point for the best and worst characters of the episode here. So here's where we stand as of episode 8, episode 7, honestly. Cassian Andor on top +6, Luthen +5, Cinta and Mon Mothma tied for third +3, Lieutenant Gorn +2. Then the pilot +1 is Marva, Andor, Nemec, and Dedra. Bix is zeroed out. The two Stooges who Cassian kills in episode 1 are -1. So are Gorn's lackeys and Vel and Skeen. So that's a foursome there. -2s, Tim with 2 M's, 2 negative points for each M in his name. Perrin, Lita, and Commandant B has -3 for Blevin. And Nick, you see, like to change the font here. He's now BOS employee car is -7. Nick, do you like that? Okay, so Nick's having a mic issue right now. He's gonna work on that. Pete, do you like keeping track of we're changing Karn's job title every time?
I think that's funny. I do. I think that's great. I think that's how it should be.
Yeah. So right now he's BOS employee Karn.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he is, right? So we should keep him that way. Maybe we should just do like separate ones, like which employee gets the negative points. Like, does the BOS employee get the negative? Does
Yeah, that's all one Karn here. So, Nick, are you all good now? Any thoughts on the Karn's employment?
You tell me. Am I all good?
Yep, you're good.
All right. Well, that is his current role, but I think that role will change soon.
Yeah, if it changes, we'll update again here as well. So we're going to start out now. We're going to start with on the positive we always do here. MVPs. Nick, I'll let you go first this week. Who's the MVP of the week?
I'm going to give my MVP to Saw Gerrera for everything that you mentioned, Mike, when you spoke about him, is that you put it perfectly. Luthen always leads the room, leads the conversation, and he was put in his place by Saw. Simple as that.
Yeah, I'm gonna give one, like, this is a strange one considering like what this episode was. I'm gonna give one to the Empire for all the reasons you mentioned about their prison policy. Like, it is literally like executed perfectly. Like, they have a setup where like they keep the people fighting against each other, not against them. And like Dedra also is doing a good job with the ISB. They feel like the Empire had very good weeks. I'll give the Empire a point. Pete, where do you want to go with yours?
I'm going Saw Gerrera as well. Such a great scene. I mean, and comparatively to all the other characters, I feel like he had the most impact. So I'm giving him the MVP.
All right, LVP. I'll start this one out here. I'm gonna add another one to the Karn pile here. I'm gonna drop him down to -8 here because this dude, I mean, poor Uncle Harlow spent a lot of political capital to get him this job. He's supposed to be keeping track of fuel lines, and he's using his time to work for information on Andor. He ends up getting a lifeline from Dedra, who comes to him for help, and he tries to overplay his hand again and gets punked by Dedra. So Karn's losing another point for me. So Karn's going down to -8. Pete, where are you going with your LVP?
Luthen is getting my LVP. The two scenes he was in was detrimental to the strength of his character. Detrimental. He pretty much got schooled by two people. Saw Gerrera, he deserved to get schooled by his assistant. Is it Leia?
There's Clea.
Leia? Is it okay? I thought he said Leia, but anyway, no business being schooled by his assistant. I mean, like, he's just kind of rolling over and playing dead right now, and it's just, like I said, detrimental to the credibility of this character this episode. So he's getting an LVP.
Nick, who's your LVP of the week?
I gotta give it to Cassian again. He just doesn't make me feel like he's the main character in the show when he's supposed to be the main character in the show. And the fact that I see him on top of the list too makes me feel like, well, he hasn't been the best character in the show. He hasn't done that many issues. This episode, I feel like he just overshadowed. Same with our guest, Nick D'Alessio, gave him the LVP last week for that reason, and I'm giving it for the same reason. I just feel like he's being overshadowed, and the show would work if he didn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all of his points came, I think, from the premiere. I think episode 5, he had a bunch of points.
Yeah, he did. But this episode, I feel like he could have not been in it, and they could have just used a random prisoner, and it would have worked just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go now to the grades for the week here. So, Pete, grade your episode scale of 1 to 10. Once again, 1 is worse than the Star Wars holiday special. 10 is the pinnacle of Star Wars entertainment here. So, we're talking about 1978 holiday special. So, what's your grade for the week?
So, I can't remember. What was my grade for last week's episode? Was it a 6 or a 7?
I will check for you real quick. Just give me 1 second to pull up last week's rundown and take a peek at that here. So I believe it was a 6. Yeah, you gave it a 7 last week.
7. Yeah. So I thought it was 7. I'm giving it a 7.5. It's trending upwards, and I know that this is probably the highest I've scored one of these episodes, but I didn't feel bogged down by a boring storyline this episode. I felt like all the information I received made me question what's going to happen next, and also drew me into wanting to watch the next episode, which I felt like the previous 4 didn't really do a great job in doing. And Saw Gerrera, man, I mean, I can't get enough of the character, and he was only on screen for 4 minutes, and it's just it's making me excited for how, and hopefully this is not wasted opportunity. Hopefully we get more of Saw in the rest of the season, and him just completely just doing work and being the intelligent mind that he is in the show. So I'm going 7.5.
I will go. Actually, Nick, you're next.
If you asked me this question at 6 a.m. when I watched the episode, I would have told you a 2. But maybe I was too tired and couldn't appreciate it. I'm gonna give this episode an 8. Big change, I know, but I just think that this episode is a good episode of a television show, and this has just been a good television show. Simple as that. And I think the amount of times I've mentioned in this podcast alone how many things I can see going in different ways makes me that much more excited for the final arc or 2 of this show. I think this episode speaks volumes. So there's so many different things that I'm like, I can see that happening, or this happening, or this happening, and that's how you want your end of season to go.
I'll give it a 7. I think for me, it's a little lower than you guys. I feel like it was still a very good episode. I feel like I was more captivated last week. I mean, there's nothing. Don't get me wrong. I feel like the stuff with Luthen and Saw at the end was probably like a highlight of the entire 2 weeks. But I feel like as a whole, I feel like the last week was better. I feel like this was a very good episode, not a great one in my opinion. I'll give it a 7.
Well, me and you both probably would have gave it a 2 or a 3 if we spoke at 7 a.m.
Yeah, that's for sure. Last but not least, predictions for next week here. So, Nick, you lead us off. What's happening next week?
Well, based on what we've seen, I think we're going to see a third dinner party. And I'm going to go back to Bosk. I think he'll be there. And I think we're going to see Cassian get out of prison. I don't think he could be in prison more than maybe he gets out of prison this is episode 9 coming up, right?
Yep.
So maybe he gets out of prison in 10, but I'm going to guess that he gets out of prison this episode. And I don't know if he's going to get him out yet. It could be Saw. It could be his friend in there. It could be Luthen. I really don't know, but I think he gets out, and we got dinner party number 3 with Bosk.
Dinner party number 3 with Bosk. I'm going to focus on the Ferrix angle here. I'm going to say that we get a long interrogation scene with Dedra and Bix, where she gets Bix to crack on Cassian, maybe by writing a torture somebody who Bix is close to. So I feel like that she gets the name of Marva Andor out of this. So I feel like there's a lot of Dedra makes more progress in investigation here. I'm also going to say I feel like Saw Gerrera has a big role next week. I feel like this conversation with Luthen is not over. Who's got to go back in hat in hand, try and get him back on the either buying the thing or doing a job for him. I feel like that's going to be. We get Luthen Saw part 2. So, Pete, what do you think?
I agree with you. I was going to say Luthen Saw part 2. We're going to go hot take, and I'm going to say we're going to see a character that is familiar to us, not necessarily fan servicey, but we're finally going to get some sort of character that we know. And possibly we finally get a point on the draft. Only because I feel like Saw Gerrera is going to be more involved, and that's going to bring other characters that we know. And hopefully it brings more characters that we know.
What I don't understand, Mike, is how could she make progress in her investigation at all if no one knows where he is? It's not like Bix doesn't know he's in jail, right?
No, I mean, in terms of she gets closer to she pulls another layer off the onion and gets sort of information he went here. I got my contact. I put him in touch with my contact, and this is who this guy is.
Yeah. But I am right about that. Not one person knows he's in jail, right?
No, I mean,
anyone in jail doesn't know who he is. So there's not one person in the entire galaxy that knows Cassian Andor is in jail.
No, they do not know that. I will say, I mean, one thing I forgot to mention in the ISB meeting was basically that Dedra mentions to Yularen, he's we have a theory that all these people work together with one guy. We're calling him Axis. So we don't have a name for this guy. So maybe they get the name Luthen out of this guy.
Yeah. There's definitely ways you can go with the investigation without necessarily knowing Cassian's in prison. And you probably won't need to know Cassian's in prison because if my prediction is right, your prediction can be more right too. If he gets out, you won't need to know he's in there because he'll come right in front of you.
Yeah, that's for sure. So that's a good place to leave this week. We'll be back next week. We have a guest booked. We are going to confirm a time on that one. So we're not going to reveal who that is yet. We'll save it for next week. See they pop up here. And one thing you guys are coming on as always, Pete. If you want to find on social media, how can you do that?
At PJ Consadori 29, the freaking Rangers are giving me heart palpitations and agita right now. But yeah, on Twitter at PJ Consadori 29, you'll probably see some hockey rants out there, and of course, retweeting this show.
All right, Nick, how about you? If people follow you on social media streets, they want to keep up what you're up to.
Nick Fraietta _9, and the Pistons are giving me the same. I mean, I got the over on them, and you're 1-4 after tonight, losing to the Hawks right now, and I just need you to win 29 more games.
That's for sure. You can also follow me on Twitter, mphillips331. It's MPHILIPS331. Got an episode out already in the Just on the Suffering podcast week. I talked to Dan Federico, Nick, about the end of the Yankee season. We had a long event session about that. Also got a plug here because I have an interview podcast coming out this week here. I talked to author Jeff Perlman about the author of this book here, The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. So I talked to him. That episode is going to be out in the podcast feed as well. So you want to get that conversation, check it out.
All right, go Giants.
Absolutely. And with that, I will say until then, until next week, may the force be with you.